So let's start with a show of hands. We're going to do this old school. And I know we've got some questions to come back to in a second. So Jedidiah and Gabe, thanks for those presentations. That's fantastic. What a great way to warm up. In the audience, who here is an entrepreneur? Let's start with the entrepreneurs.
Whoa.
Current, previous, down the startup thing, feels it in their heart. Okay. And who would say they're from an investment background? So a couple of people from investment. People in enterprises, big established companies, corporates. Okay, one or two. Who would say they're either qualified, postgrad, PhD in AI or any kind of science related to AI? Okay, we've got a few. And who here has no idea what we're talking about? Yeah, free beer and pizza. So, well, look, it's great to have you all here. And by all means, panelists, if there are any other questions you want to throw at the audience, just please do so. So we're going to just do some quick introductions, and we'll go from my right-hand side across. So, Justin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure.
I'll just speak.
Relay upstairs.
So I'm Justin, and I do kind of market research tech. So we're slightly different from the other panelists in that we predict and target the right consumers across the entire population, not just on your own customer database. It's mainly for campaigns, but we're branching out into other areas as well.
And the name of the company?
FocalData, important.
Yeah, very important. And we'll come back to FocalData in a second.
Yeah. I'm Sharad, founder and CEO of a company called Sentisum. So we help enterprises improve customer experience by leveraging their customer opinion data. So we are relying on AI like sentiment analysis, emotion analysis, categorization, and all of this stuff. We are a 500 startups company, and we are looking to hire data scientists. So feel free to stick to me.
That's a plug. My name is Keesup Choe. I'm the CEO of Pi, and what we do is, I guess you call it AI-driven BI. So both in terms of automated data wrangling in the background, and also dynamic front end that responds to what's important. Thanks, Charlie, for doing all this. When we first started, we had to actually hide the fact we're using this stuff in the back end because it would scare people. So, because AI was a 4-letter word until like 4 years ago, right? 3 or 4 years ago. So it's great that it's now out in the open.
Great. Thank you for being here. You've done your introduction, but
I've done my introduction. But what I would say is that my next step is I'm building a company, a technology company, working on personalization, and I'll be happy to talk with you more about that.
Welcome to the light side.
Yeah.
It's very exciting, exactly. I'm Ivan, CEO and founder of Ometria. Jed basically set me up for the perfect introduction, so thank you. We help retailers use AI to better message, communicate, speak with their customers. Actually, one more show of hands question, if I may. Who's a retailer here? Do we have any retailers? That is a limited selection of retailers. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you. You're going to get what I'm about to say. Which is, we spoke to 300 retailers. We found that in order to message a customer, they'd have to get a data tool, some BI stuff, potentially an analytics tool, an email service provider, a bunch of behavioral marketing platforms, and then by that point, the marketer just gave up on life and went home. So we replaced that whole entire stack. We basically track all consumer behavior. We use AI to profile the actual interest of each customer, when they're likely to buy, what they're likely to buy, and then we send the messages across. Email, Facebook, Instagram, Google, all the channels that work right now to get them to come back and buy more. And 4 years ago when we started, AI was really a 4-letter word. Nobody wanted any of this. They were like, no, we're just going to send out newsletters, leave us alone. This year, suddenly, everyone's like, oh, hey, you have AI? Fantastic. Can we buy it now? So it's been great.
Yeah, unfortunately, you only do it for retail, and as a B2B business, we felt really dissed for that.
I'm sorry. We'll build something for you, especially this year.
Great, and well, you've all just heard from me, so hello again, and yeah, really looking forward to the discussion. I think Sharad made a good call there with so many startups in the room. Actually, we shouldn't really be pitching the businesses; we should be pitching them as recruiting, right? We want come and work for us. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of action going on in this whole space. Anyone with data science skills is in great demand. And so many companies are struggling with the basics. So this is an opportunity for everyone who's involved, whichever part of the world you come from. So yeah, great to be here and with the discussion. Yeah.
Good. Well, so welcome panel. We're going to kick off with a question, and maybe this was partly the question we got earlier, and I'm going to see if I can keep the panel off, and then we'll go across. But we have some incredible innovations that you guys have talked about already, and even just in the introductions to the panel. But there's a lot of concern with these opportunities. You know, what happens to privacy for people using these platforms? Is it sometimes a little bit spooky that your experience is going to be personalized online? And there's obviously new regulation coming in next year with GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. Anybody want to kick off and talk about how do we make consumers feel okay about the fact that we're tracking them, and even if it is in order to improve the experience they're getting?
Right, we started talking about this a little bit before. I mean, just a brief comment. We've kind of been through this a little bit with cookies. It's just one of those things that's not going to go away. We all have to respect, you know, obviously the privacy of our customers and respect their data. Data breaches are hugely damaging, and they're not just damaging to the business in terms of its individual reputation. They're damaging to the whole industry. I think people are prepared to put up with quite a lot in the way of tracking, and these personalised experiences and these recommenders, if they're providing real value, people appreciate that. As I say, they're prepared to put up with it. But yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. I think there have been some enormous breaches in the last year or two. So you know, we all need to look at this very, very carefully, make sure we follow those regulations, but primarily make sure that we just really respect that relationship we have with the customers as we collect this data on them. More could be said on this.
Yeah, Ivan, you were talking earlier a little bit about how it's coming in next year, but actually it's not really nailed down yet. You know, this thing's still in flux.
So last week they issued, I guess, a guidance and a request for responses from companies about how they're going to treat profiling. And by profiling, they mean basically not just tracking, which is what I guess was already being covered by cookie law, stuff like that, but inference of things that these consumers haven't actually told you. And they're talking about things like making sure that you don't use that for discrimination purposes, because, you know, in finance, for example, you could make an inference and then not give someone credit, and that could be completely wrong because your algorithms are crazy, and this is now going to be looked at as discrimination. It's stuff like not doing any kind of predictive profiling of children, which means, you know, how the hell do you know that the person behind a keyboard and mouse is a child, and what do you do in that? So they've kind of issued the spec, the way that it's going to be written, and they've said you've now got a chance to come back and tell us whether you think that changes should be made. So for anyone who that affects, I mean, us certainly as a company, but all the companies that we work with, right, it's a good opportunity to actually have a conversation with the decision makers. Whether they will change their mind or not, I don't know, but at least there is an open conversation, which is not something that we can say about lots of things that are, you know, privacy and regulation related.
That's good. Great to obviously see that consultation, whereas it's a little alarming that it's coming into law next year with, you know, huge penalties still not locked down. Yeah. So pass you the mic. Oh yes. Just check that. Is this working?
Yeah, this one sounds louder.
Switch over.
Yeah.
Give it a loud mic.
So I think
how does this affect your business and your customers?
It does in many different ways, but the point you're making is it's more of a regulatory driver going on. But there's another driver going on as well, because if this were a blockchain conference, there'd be people talking about personal anonymity and personas that you can display to advertisers and marketers. So there's another thing happening. So and I think basically the panel here and retailers have to actually give value, isn't it? In the same way that you can opt out of things, if you can opt out of AI personas, then you have to actually incentivize them, right? Why would I want to give you information? Because imagine you can now do a blockchain persona, and you can actually trade information back and forth. I will give you my age group, but what are you going to give me? And imagine you can actually get compensated for it in terms of fractional bitcoins or something. And that is, I think, coming. And we're working on some of this because we straddle, because some of our clients we hold patient records, and the DH is our client, and intensely interested in that sort of security.
Absolutely. Justin, so just to go to a different angle, so let's assume for a second that we've done the right thing, we've adhered to the current and future regulatory standards. What are the most exciting things that consumers can benefit from when it comes to using personalized data?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of, the whole GDPR thing really creates incentive actually for companies to change their privacy regulations to make it a competitive and comparative advantage with their brand. And so if we're talking about, what are these kind of really interesting changes, will there be an advantage for companies in the way they notify people? Will they get customers to kind of help each other to inform them on their privacy regulations? Because, opting in is going to be so important, and obviously, we're looking at an AI event, the secret source behind all AI is data, so you really, really, really need to capture this, which means you've really got to inform them in a kind of very persuasive way. And I think it will become a comparative and, competitive point, differentiating point between companies in the future.
And you were talking about risk analysis. How does that kind of benefit the consumer as well as the business?
Yeah, so I mean, well, we were talking about it earlier from a kind of business point of view, and that really allows you to say, okay, my AI is predicted A is better than B, but actually behind every prediction is a kind of probability distribution. I don't want to get too technical, but it's basically saying, okay, it's an average. Each point's an average. But if we know the risk and the probability behind things, we can calibrate which action is better, given different scenarios and given different costs. So it's a kind of real decision-making framework, and that actually applies to business decisions, and it applies to which customers you might target. And I think there's also going to be if there are some customers that are worried about privacy, that also factors into your kind of estimates. So I think the whole uncertainty thing feeds in, and it kind of feeds off the privacy regulations and all the GDPR.
Sharad, tell us, we were talking earlier, and Alexa obviously is a big, phenomenal thing. I think everybody's probably heard about various press reports of an Alexa recording conversations, ending up in a court of law, in the case of a crime scene, in fact. But that's something that alarms some people. You were talking about voice being this platform going forward. I think Accenture said AI is the new user interface. So there are challenges. What are the exciting new opportunities around that?
I mean, I personally believe that voice is definitely the next disruption when it comes to marketing and personalization. So if you look historically, like marketing has been more text-based, not personalized, but what Alexa is allowed you to do is basically implicitly collect data about the user. So you're talking to people, basically. Alexa is listening to you. It's knowing about your preferences, not just about you, but about your whole family. So that data is so important, which can be leveraged towards targeted marketing, advertising, and then when you have bought the product, collecting feedback about it. So it is not, you're not living in a kind of a silo system.
It hears you cursing as you're trying to put the table together.
You can connect all those dots and provide a much better user experience. And going back to the privacy, I think it's also to do with awareness. What has happened till now is that we were made to kind of click on those little tick boxes saying I accept terms and conditions without knowing what you're signing up for. And then you get a shock and surprise, oh, my data is being used towards this and that. But if you actually make users aware that we will be using this data towards this, then you might feel, yeah, this makes sense. I personally would kind of be okay sharing my specific data because maybe I want better advertising or marketing. I don't want something being shown all the time on like web pages on Alexa, which I don't care about. So I think awareness is the key, letting people opt what they want to share, what they don't want to share.
So I think that's a common thread here is that we need to be transparent about what the options are and what's available, and we can turn that into a competitive advantage rather than a problem. So what would you say, anybody on the panel, it's a great example of how we can improve. I mean, Jed, you were talking earlier about how we can improve the experience, so when you come back to buy a pair of jeans for the 7th time, it doesn't run you through the same questions. What are the best examples you've seen of what we can do today?
So I would say it's not commerce, but it's digital still, and it would be Netflix and Spotify in the sense that they've shifted the paradigm from being centered around the catalog to being centered around you. So you come to Netflix, and the expectation is that the genres that are most relevant to you and the movies that are most relevant to you are shown first. And that paradigm shift is something that I think we should start seeing across e-commerce and other digital spaces.
Why hasn't that happened in e-commerce so far? So I think Netflix has been around for a while, and I think probably, put your hands up if you use Netflix. Okay, so we're probably like 80% plus. So what's taking so long?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's a culture change, it's a paradigm change, and it requires brands to stop thinking about the experience as you're going to come to our site and experience our brand, and we're going to tell you what you should look at. And it's a complete mind shift to something where, hey, come to our site and we're going to show you the stuff that's most relevant to you. And I think that there are open questions there around what does it mean to be a brand in this dynamic and really flexible world. I think that's something that a lot of companies need to answer, and I think it's something that's unanswered currently.
So it's kind of like because you're handing over control, in a sense. Is that what it is? So as a retailer or a magazine or somebody with a consumer experience, you're no longer driving that experience if you're going to do the personalization.
Well, it's going from a world where millions of customers, regardless of the country, they're seeing exactly the same thing, to a world where if I visit the homepage, maybe I see leopard print T-shirts, but you would see something smarter. Could you? Who knows? Who knows?
How do you know I don't like leopard print?
I know. I'm inferring that. But it's about that mind shift, and I think it's something that brands will get to. And I think as the technology is mature, and I think to a large extent they have, and I think as that paradigm grows in other digital spaces, it will catch on in commerce.
Ivan, what specific example have you seen? Because bring it to light.
Well, I guess also on that final point, you're right. It's the emotional change in the way that people, us human beings, make decisions. Right? Most brands still want to promote what they believe is right. Most human beings believe that they know the answer. Like everyone here is an entrepreneur. Most people are entrepreneurs by the face on their hands. The concept of a product manager, right? The reason the product manager exists is to go and ask people what they want and then go build that. The worst thing you can do in a startup is come up with an idea and try and sell that. I know that's what we did for the first year of Ometria, right? So, but yeah, so you're right in terms of the technologies have now reached a point where it's possible, and it is fundamentally possible to start using this. I mean, some of the cool stuff we do, for example, is use Bayesian inference to work out whether somebody is likely to ever come back again, and whether an action is likely to increase or decrease their score, and therefore make a decision: do you communicate with someone? Do you not communicate with someone? Is it likely that they will come back and buy without you ever sending any message? And then you use kind of slightly standard predictors and classifier models, basically, entropy-based stuff, to work out what are the relevant messages and products and content to include in that message. But those are two totally different pieces of AI running separately but combined to then deliver a better result for the customer and therefore for the retailer.
Can you, I don't know if you can reference a customer's name or a specific example. It'd be great if you could just talk to a very specific example and just go through the steps.
Yeah, definitely. Coolest company we work with right now is a company called Lost My Name. So we work with a bunch of VC-backed super fast growth guys like Graze.com, Lost My Name, Charlotte Tilbury. We work with a bunch of kind of more established retailers, there's London, Moss Bros and stuff like that. But I guess the VC-backed guys, they've changed their model quite a lot. We work on the retention side of the business. On the retention side of the business, you have much more data, therefore you can profile people better, therefore you can basically get better results. Now, Lost My Name have unified every single channel under one head of loyalty, who's used our platform across multiple companies basically for the last 4 years, but now she's head of loyalty there. And that means that their acquisition teams are not allowed to touch their customers, the retention side, at all in any channel. And this is something that I believe is going to happen in every business going forward, because until now what you've had is a Facebook person, a Google person, and every single channel was siloed. Yeah, but the problem with that is, when you look at the slides that you just showed, 89% of customers, 89% of retailers have to compete on the basis of customer experience, right? Half of the customers that have even one terrible experience will leave and never come back. So you need to take the shift towards one person owning the entire experience across every single channel, and then you just plug in one of the solutions, hopefully us, and then it's sort of done, basically.
Sounds magical. It sounds magical. So anybody else on the panel want to talk about some of the...
What I would say, I would go beyond just one person owning all the communication to, oftentimes you have a person that owns CRM and DM, and different people that own the e-commerce journey. I think that needs to be joined.
You're right.
So the Netflix analogy is fantastic, but I think it's still at a pretty crude stage. We're nowhere close to where we want to be. And so if I'm thinking about what I want, really, what I want AI to do for me is the ultimate curation. If you think of how e-tailers have stratified itself between like the Amazon, the massive sort of I can do anything, to the highly curated, the specialist, right? So the ultimate vision of that curation is I don't even want to choose anymore. I want decision elimination to come into my life, right? I want things to say, okay, this is my budget, surprise me. This is my budget, Netflix, show me something fantastic. I think, so that's what AI can ultimately do. It's not just recommendation, others like you did this. No, this is what you're going to get, and you're going to love it. And if you don't, then we'll learn from it, right?
Yeah.
I'll just jump in there and say...
No, go for it. Yeah.
I'll just jump in and say that that's a really good point. And depending on where the customer is in their journey and how close they are to making a decision, whatever that decision is, the type of AI and the type of product that you need is different.
Imagine if they trust you enough to say, here's my budget, ASOS or whoever, surprise me.
Yeah.
Well, wear this.
Yeah.
We know you so well. Here's what we need.
And we have a really simple example of that where we had recommendations that we show to customers. And so if you're looking at the jeans, we might show you some shoes and some socks and other things. And what we realize is the closer you are to purchasing, if we show you multiple categories, you get excited and you click off, and then you never buy. And so we realize actually the closer you are to making a decision of buying a pair of jeans, only show me jeans.
Exactly like in physical world, the great salesman lady who says, this is what you need. You look fantastic in this. That's what you want, right? Ultimately, no choice. This is what's right for you.
I'm just going to jump in and reinforce what's been said in my own way. I mean, when we talk about, what are the examples of great companies where it really works, and the obvious one is Amazon. I know people have mixed feelings about Amazon, but I still think it's fantastic. I will pay more to shop on Amazon because it's better. Let's face it, I mean, I'm using, one of our clients is rental cars, and they're part of Booking.com, is another sort of perhaps less well known, but actually very widely used, very successful company and they're using AI and recommenders in combination with other technologies. But what they've got right is a seamless customer experience. It just works. When it doesn't work, they just fix it. And it's easy. It's just an easy experience. It's not, and I think, Jed, I think it was had it right. It's not their business. They know it's not central to your life. You're just trying to get something done. You're at the middle, and they just give you what you want, right? There's this guy that's been buzzing around, this Google guy talking about what happiness is, and he was talking about, you've probably seen it on Channel 4 recently, the gap between what you get from life and what you expect, and closing that gap down is what true happiness is all about. And this is what we can do now. We can move to a world where that gap just disappears. We become more impatient, actually, because our expectations are raised. So just don't make it hard for me. And the technology can create these frictionless experiences, and then to Keesup's point, and to the point that's been made, it can also actually proactively now feed you with exactly the experiences you're looking for. So that's where it's going. It's just a seamless experience.
So let's continue with that line of thought. Where is this going, right? We talked about in the title transforming the online experience, and so we've talked about Netflix and personalization and recommenders, right? But where's this ultimately going? I mean, I love the conversation we're getting back to. So Netflix is going to tell you what to watch. I'd kind of like, so we went
play me something.
Exactly. When you stop watching.
Yeah, you've seen enough. Go do something interesting.
But where is this going next?
Can I jump in?
Sure. And then
what I would say
is
that behind all of this, we have to also remember that the customers are changing as well. And so when we design our user experience, we think and talk a lot about millennials and the way they think and what their expectations are. And the really fascinating thing is that the digital natives are on their heels. So if you think of the kids that were born with the internet, they're now turning 15, 14 and 15, and so in a couple of years, they're going to be the ones that you're going to be designing for, right? And their expectations are going to be completely different. So I think we should also remember that actually in the next couple of years, the conversations we're having now are going to be, yesterday's news, because of course, if you're not doing personalized experiences and if you don't have a consistent message. And if you don't have bots and AI making the UX intuitive, you're yesterday's news. Right? So we need to bear that in mind.
Yeah, we talked earlier about the decline of kind of cookies, and I do see in the whole customer experience integrating with very much kind of all businesses, even if they don't know you, you haven't bought from them yet, understanding you as a person. They're onboarding data from all sorts of sources. They're inferring who you are, so that now you go there, they're pretty blind. They might do little things quite quickly, but soon, I'd say within a year, you're going on a website. You haven't bought from them before, but they've kind of assessed you're a certain personality type. Maybe you want softer colours in the website. Maybe they lead you onto a certain kind of, you're looking for groceries, and they know kind of roughly that you're of the age of you might have children. We're not far away from that, and that's kind of the decline of cookies, and it's really the rise of kind of individualized, highly personalized advertising. And this doesn't have to be a bad, scary thing. I think people worry about it, but actually it's a great story to say, because you're going to a store that speaks to you as a person, and I think most people do want that.
Sharad, I mean, you jumped on the voice thing earlier, so I'm going to come back to that. So we're talking about web interfaces still and mobile interfaces, but what about there was a picture in your slide deck of a humanoid robot, right? I think the stats is the Chinese have written some forecasts. I'm not sure what the number was, but it's not too distant future there'll be more robots in China than people, and that's kind of a terrifying thing. But the what are the interfaces of the future? I mean, what does a personalized experience look like in the future?
Absolutely. So when we talk about customer experience and exceptional customer experience, we forget that customers expect exceptional customer experience at all their customer journeys. It's not just about discovery, search. It's across all the journeys. It has to be consistent. And what is also drastically changing is customers expect that 24/7. Whether it's discovery, buying, support, service, complaining, they're expecting it 24/7.
Every touch point.
Every touch point. Is it possible to deliver that manually, especially for big companies? Answer is no. What can deliver? AI. So I think that is the future. If you have to provide exceptional customer experience, you need to adopt AI. You need to move towards, I'm not going to use the word automated, but augmented. Because we are not there in terms of complete automation of AI. We are still in what I use the term called human-assisted AI, more of augmented AI. And I think that is the future for next 3 to 5 years before we jump into complete automation.
And in 5 years' time, what are the interfaces? Are we all going to be just talking in our living rooms and things are going to arrive on
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's already there.
Yeah? I agree with that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I know you work a lot in sentiment. I mean, at the moment, I saw this great advert the other day, I think it was Burger King, where it says something like, ask Google in the advert, or it could say Alexa, and of course your Alexa fires up because the TV is actually talking to your own box. How are we going to be able to tell the difference between a genuine request of one of these voice services versus a joke versus your TV with an advert running on it?
Yeah, that's a challenge. But technology is solving that, and that's definitely a challenge.
To-do list.
Well, yeah. If you took a child and put this child 10 years in the past, that child would go up to anything that looks like a screen and try to swipe it, right? The same thing will happen 10 years. You took a child from 10 years in the future, they'll go to any appliance and start trying to talk to it. So that's definitely going to happen, isn't it?
So we've just had a couple of questions come up from the floor, so we're going to pause there and see who has got a question to ask. And Luke, do you want to grab one of the mics? And Exactly, we've got a bunch of questions. What I suggest we do, if you don't mind, is pass the mic, and we're going to get 3 or 4 questions, and then we're going to hit the panel with them all at one go. So, first question here.
First of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the discussion tonight. It's I don't come from a STEM background, so I don't know a lot about data science, and I see the future becoming quite cold with a lot of interactions being digitalized. Now, tonight you asked about data scientists and asking people to talk to you later on, and I'm thinking, in a few years' time, would like anthropologists and sociologists would be the new jobs in demand? Because I was reading the other day that, 65% of the jobs and the degrees that people get today will be completely irrelevant in 5 years' time. A lot of things would be automated. And I'm thinking, how is humanity, what are we going towards? Are we all going to become data scientists, or are we more going to go back to being more in touch with our natural selves and isolate ourselves in a way from technology?
Great question. Thank you for that. If you pass the mic behind, yeah, I might have you head back there.
I was wondering, in the context of voice search and sort of recommendation engines, where I could say to Alexa, buy me a pair of jeans, and she'll know exactly which pair of jeans and what the style is and what the current trends are, and she will buy it and they'll be delivered. How do you think brands and businesses will cope with a sort of user experience where the user might not be a human but a artificial intelligence like Alexa?
So Alexa talking to Alexa. It's a really good question. There's a lot of ones buried in that one.
Slightly similar question. So we talked a lot about how brands target consumers, and somebody said who's the most important person or thing. Obviously the customer should be the most important thing. I was wondering if the panel thought we might actually be reaching a space where it's actually the consumer that has the power rather than the brands. Because if I'm standing in a room saying, I want a pair of jeans, I don't really care where it comes from, because I'm not going on an individual website, I'm not going into an individual space. So is there a space where the consumer is actually the one who's going to take more their control back with the use of AI?
In which case, if you're thinking about, you ask Alexa to go and get you some jeans and it picks where you buy them from.
It chooses.
Yeah.
So I'm going on holiday, I turn up somewhere and brands bid for my services.
Yeah.
I don't ask them, I don't go to them, they come to me.
Thank you for that. More questions?
Hi, thank you for a great talk. My name's Dave. Quick question, short question. So for all of your different products, you need data. Obviously, that's the bedrock of the new revolution. It sounds like most of you are using internal data from your business, except potentially Justin. But in general, I wanted to ask you about external data sources. There are a lot of interesting data sources out there. Do you use them? Or do you want to use them? And what challenges have you faced? And where do you see that going in the future?
Great question.
Time for one more?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep going. We'll get a bunch and then we'll let the panel dive in.
Okay. My name is Danny Guillory. I'm head of global diversity and inclusion at Autodesk. So my lens is a little bit different. My question is about diversity with respect to AI. On the front end, in terms of the data sources, because obviously if there are data sources that aren't included, then there are whole groups and populations that have the potential to be considered irrelevant eventually. And the second part for me is around and what you're doing about that, and how you're thinking about that. The second part is on the back end. You described a frictionless experience. One of the things about diversity that is powerful is the fact that I encounter ideas that are different than my own. And one of the things that I get concerned about with AI is that we create gated communities where I only experience what I want to, and I never have that experience of sitting on the tube next to somebody who I've never invited to dinner, but I've learned something from the process. And so I'm wondering if you're thinking about aspects of diversity in terms of the work that you do.
Kind of breaking out of the bubble. Right.
An area, I think, in my opinion, an area where AI fails in e-commerce is the way AI works. It needs to learn something about individual customers before it can make any sensible decisions or recommendations. Without doing so, AI may make or will probably make senseless decisions which will actually turn the customers away. So I don't know if you agree or if you disagree to anyone, and if you agree. How do you think this can be tackled?
Thank you. Okay, one more question. Yep, go for it. The panel's ready to roll.
My question is mainly for Charlie, because I have been attending many of the CognitionX meeting, but today's one is mainly for retail application. But what I have been asking you, or the kind of the meeting, is about there must be a kind of clever AI and poor or a full AI. So now every company, big company, is trying to brand their AI. It's very, very clever. And but for the thousands or millions of retailers worldwide, we need to choose first which AI is clever and which version or which years of AI is clever enough. And then how can, if I am a kind of retailer, how can I integrate or use the AI for my own business? So that's kind of the application like previously Microsoft Office or version 8 or 9 or 10, whatever. How can we benchmark the AI
against each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, big challenging question. I might take that one upstairs over drinking some food. But thanks for those questions. Are there any other, anybody raise hands, any other questions? Because we're going to do a second round. One more at the front here. Oh, you got one at the back?
Yeah, I was really interested in the, not Netflix, the Lexis example at the beginning. So I'm trying to, having an AI that just predicts that someone's having an awful experience and they're going to leave doesn't necessarily tell you that much information about what you can do about it. And I'm just wondering how the AI approach contrasts with a conventional heuristics-driven approach. So we might say, for example, that people that conduct more than 5 searches in a row haven't really found what they're looking for, so we need to look at the search algorithm, the kind of stuff that a competent professional would do. How does it compare that approach, right?
Cool, so Gabe can obviously pick that one up. Brilliant. So we've got a great range of questions there. Jobs, what are they going to look like in the future? Should we all train as data scientists, or are we going to get back in touch with different subjects? Alexa, is Alexa going to find itself talking to other machines? That's a great one. Where's the power moving? Is the power really moving back to the consumer rather than the brand or the retailer? Why don't we start with those ones? Justin, you look ready to go.
Sure, I'd like to address the social scientist question first up, because I reckon there's so many, we might forget some of the early ones. So we actually use social scientists and anthropologists a lot in what we do. We're analysing public opinion. And we use a kind of a statistical framework that incorporates domain expertise. So we are on the hunt for PhD, social scientists, anthropologists, political scientists, who can say, actually we run a survey, it's saying all these people, are really going to vote for Donald Trump. Actually, the survey looks like it might be biased. We know through our kind of experience that actually these people might say that, but they're kind of, get excited on a panel. You kind of move that estimates down using your own domain expertise. So I would say that anthropologists and social scientists will be in huge demand, but they'll have to have the statistical training to kind of get involved with, the AI revolution. And with regards to, I think, the other question on data sources, everyone's on hunt for data wherever you can find it. So I think what you find, or what we find at the moment, is we're having to acquire data, and it's very expensive. So, like most companies, you're looking to build a platform that you're trading your predictive power, your brain power for data, and you're trying to build that data moat. But those who own the data are in such a great position. And so for us, public opinion, we operate in a kind of low data environment where we don't know much about those people around the country, and so we have to fill in those gaps. So we're not all Facebook or Google.
Thanks, Justin. Who wants to tackle the Alexa talking to Alexa?
I'm sorry to jump on that. Actually, the second and the third questions combined because they're both relevant. I think starting from the third, which is if you look, one of the hottest startups in London right now is a company called List. They have like 500 employees. They use the same data tech as you guys do, and I guess we do. And they're an aggregator. So you go in and you type in genes, and they will find you genes from any company that they happen to work with. But when you then start applying that concept, whether through an aggregated solution or individual retailer to Alexa, you start running into some challenges. So I slightly disagree on the time frames with you, both of you guys, because consider this, right? You've got Alexa, you've got a party or some music. You're like, Alexa, turn it down. It doesn't work. Can't hear it. Every evening, my wife has an argument with Alexa because she's like, turn off the lights, but she doesn't say the yes particularly loudly. So it says which one every single time. Yesterday, I was trying to watch. True story. I was trying to watch Better Call Saul yesterday on Netflix. Turn it on, and I'm like, okay, down, new shows, no. Okay, trending, no. Picks for Ivan, no. Took me about 100 clicks. I got really angry. I'm like, it's Netflix. How can it not know that I like Better Call Saul? I saw both of the other previous seasons, and it came out today. So the expectation level is so high. If you were to ask Alexa to order you a pair of jeans, the chances of it understanding what you want and being able to recommend the right thing and then you getting it is like 0 right now. I think we are 20 years away from that actually working. And we've had Google Assistant, we've had voice for, 10 years, pretty much? And has it moved that far along? Alexa's kind of good, it's certainly better in understanding what you're saying, but it's definitely not there to be able to respond in a way that a human being does. We'll accept issues with a website, we'll accept issues with a piece of text or a screen. We don't accept issues as a human being when we're speaking via voice with something. So that's only my opinion, that's right.
No, that's a great answer. And unless anybody else wants to comment specifically on that, I was going to move us on to the question about where the power now sits. So, are we in an era where the power is moving away from the brands? You mentioned List as an aggregated brand to the consumer, or is that a false sense of empowerment? Jed?
I think what I would say is, if you look at some of the most valuable companies on the planet, or Facebook, Google, etc., a large part of their market position is because they actually aggregate our data and they have ownership and control of that data. I would hugely advocate for a scenario where we as consumers take that power back, or at least are able to leverage control over that. And so you can think of, coming back to your earlier point, some sort of data passport. So you walk into a store, or you go to an online website, and you take that data and you can choose at the point of entering that experience whether you want to use it for retargeting or for personalization, or if you just want to be anonymous. And I'd love to see models and scenarios where where the value, the proposition to the customer and also to the businesses works out really well. But I also think it's probably 10 to 20 years away.
So I interpret the question slightly differently, which is, I think you were asking power to the consumer and less to the retailers, who are in essence intermediating you from the actual brand itself. I think the power is probably shifting to those poles rather than to the middlemen. I mean, one proof of that is Tesla now has become the most valuable U.S. auto manufacturer, right? It's a fraction of the revenues. How have they done? Maybe it's a better product if you could buy it. They only sold 20,000, right, in the last quarter, 20,000 vehicles. So but the brand is quite distinctive, right? It's amazing brand, and obviously the figurehead is his own personal brand. But so if you want to buy a Tesla because of various aspects from a marketing perspective, I don't think that's really much to do with some of the stuff we're talking about here. So in one sense, if I go back to the original question, one sense, my sort of hope is that the AI promise actually allows us to be more human rather than less human, because it will value creativity. So once all of the automation has happened, there are no more drivers. Then what is left? It's actually ideas, thought, collaboration, innovation. So in essence, those sort of things really need input, frames of references that are different from just getting your math PhD. So I started out as a jazz musician. That was my background. So we're looking for now an opportunity for people from different backgrounds to inject their own creativity because the technology is going to become easy. When we first started, there was no TensorFlow. We had to build our own neural net. These guys probably don't do that anymore, right? And you shouldn't. And you shouldn't either. And next stage will be now these apps will exist. You don't have to even write your own Python scripts. Yeah. So at that point, what do? Now it's your creativity, humanity.
Well, that's a great segue to the point about being human and actually the data. And I think it was Daniel was raising this question around inclusion and what data sets are included and who's excluded. That's, I think, a topic that's I know it's dear to my co-founder Tabitha's heart, and she's got this great event coming up soon, which is Why Women in AI. And it's all about the bias in training data and making sure that that we keep an eye on that. Does anybody want to talk about the diversity question, especially when it comes to data?
Remember, it happened before AI. This stuff started happening, the preference and narrowing, and especially in the U.S., as you know, in the politics in the U.S. has become so fragmented and so specialized, and it's driving people. Just because I happen to read this doesn't mean I only want to read this, right? So I think some of the promise is actually introducing back serendipity, right? Inclusion. Unexpected serendipity. That's what we want now.
Can machines do that?
Well, it can do anything you teach it to do. You put in some direct function to just go out of the boundaries and boom. Exactly. Yeah. Which is exactly the only way you can solve the auto driving conundrum, right? You played that MIT game? You guys know about this? You have to choose who's going to live. Yeah. How do you do this? So you have to introduce some randomness, because if everybody knew that if I'm doing this, I'm always going to get run over, it'll never fly. You could have some sort of dice at the end saying, okay, I could still live, even if I rob the bank and crossing on a red, right? Which in the MIT game, you're always going to die.
So getting stuck in your own bubble is an interesting one. I think, Justin, you've been looking at using kind of data for forecasting elections and understanding how we look at the populace as a data set. What we have had with Brexit and Trump, whether you are pro or against, was still phenomenal. Were we really all stuck in our own bubbles?
So yeah, it's a very interesting point, and it's, I guess, probably captured everyone's attention around AI more than your daily interactions with phone, when it shifts kind of politics in such a kind of profound way. The truth is that people are, I think, moving into their own bubbles, and it is compounded by targeting. So part of what we can do is we'll go and say, okay, you are a Greenpeace, right? And they come to us and they want to know who they should speak to. And 40% of the population, don't want anything to do with Greenpeace. 40% of the population, maybe they really love Greenpeace already, and there's, basically a soft 20, and that's who we start speaking to. And then within that soft 20, we start segmenting them by all sorts of things, and we're showing them different adverts. And so the question, we have to ask ourselves is, is this a wholly negative thing? And as part of FocalData, we actually are trying to raise the profile of the positive aspects of more personal conversations. Because if you think about Trump, the biggest part of the population, they didn't vote for Hillary and they didn't vote for Trump. They were just completely apathetic and they didn't vote at all. And if we can engage them perhaps in deeper conversations, raise the level of apathy, reduce the level of apathy, and get people more engaged, I think that is a wholly positive thing for society. It's positive for campaigns that we think are important. I think the thing about methodology is it's generally neutral. It reflects society as a whole. And quick talk about your point about women. What we have to be very careful about is AI is going to reflect the biases in society already. You are going to have, let's say, credit prediction algorithms giving people loans, and they will discriminate against certain parts of society, and that's awful, and it is reflecting the existing societal structures and biases. And we have to be very careful as people working in the industry and speaking to people, regulators, that we say, this is the case. We should, raise the issue and say, okay, maybe there's regulations that affect all of us equally. Say that this isn't acceptable, and we can actually change that for the good. So there's actually a lot of good possibility in AI at the moment.
So just to continue that thought for a second, so you were talking about people who didn't vote and the bubble of those who perhaps went either way. And so one thing's targeting people who are already in a bubble and reinforcing something, but you're talking about taking people who are really not in either bubble and trying to target them.
Yeah, so I mean the thing is, part of the whole Trump thing is they're always going to be like 30% of the US population always going to vote for him. So you'd be surprised, because you think he's just speaking to his base the whole time, but actually most of the spending, both Democrat and Republican, is not looking at their base. What Trump did for the first time is he found roughly disaffected Hillary voters who weren't going to vote for him, but he suppressed their votes so they didn't vote for Hillary. So normally you're looking to swing people from a kind of, +1 to a -1, i.e. voting for Hillary to voting for Trump. I actually said, you know what, I'm going to suppress, and he actually targeted the black population in Florida a lot by pushing a clip of Hillary from the 90s who said some kind of not very nice things about that part of the population, and that suppressed that key part of the electorate in that key state. And you're looking, I think, she won Florida and Pennsylvania by, I think, not much more than a combined score of like 70,000 votes or something ridiculously tight. So you can see how important the targeting is at the margins, and you can see how you can target at very unique parts of the population. Let people decide whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting topic. So this is transforming the online experience, but the online experience of us when we vote, right? And what each of us see is different because there are campaigns that target us in different ways. Anybody else want to talk about diversity or the bubble? Gabriel?
Yeah, I think that the promise of personalisation is, if I think about when I try to understand the interaction of customers in an e-commerce sense or any kind of interaction with something, the starting point is you kind of look at everybody as if they're the same. You have this sort of single journey. The next thing you do, is you start segmenting your customers. You do cluster analysis. You do things that allow you to look at different groups. And the very least you want to do is look at your new versus your existing customers. I mean, you've got to do that. But then you start thinking about different user groups. You start thinking about their gender, right? You start thinking about their backgrounds. You start thinking about their income. So, and actually, ultimately, the promise of personalisation is that there should be something for everybody. It should be about providing experiences which adapt to everybody and more or less give them kind of something that reflects them and their preferences. But I think the point was made very well that the danger is, of course, that it will simply reinforce existing patterns. That it will assume that you are essentially like other people who are a bit like you. We talked a bit about how brilliant Spotify is. I love Spotify. I was an early adopter of Spotify. But it's funny how they've changed the discovery algorithms because they just got it wrong so often. They just could never quite figure out what music I liked. They could sometimes, but other times they just got it really drastically wrong.
They're trying to introduce serendipity. Things you don't normally.
Well, of course, and so what they do now is they play you back your own list and they infuse it with the people they've got better at it.
You should stop listening to 80s.
Sure. No, Matt, my music tests are diverse. That is why they have such a challenge. Oh, there's nothing wrong with 80s, but
from jazz to Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff. You've lost me now. It's the philosophical questions that I like, though. Those ones. The other one that came up, which I think is great, is this one about. That keeps coming up is what's the future of humanity when AI takes over, right? That whole, it's not an old chestnut's about a month old. It was a big buzz about it recently, and I know you've been talking about this at every event you've gone to because it keeps coming up. And I'm quite optimistic. I believe in progress. I think that what will happen is that, the technology will ultimately liberate us, that it increases productivity, it allows us to do, more. And we don't have to do these nappy things. In the data scientists, I'm still writing my own Python, but the platforms are out there that allow you to, drag and drop, a bit dangerous, your machine learning algorithm, and it'll do it for you, kind of thing. Increasingly, they will be the curators of these systems, and increasingly, the technology will do it for us, and will hopefully become our friend in the end, and not our enemy. So anyway, I just wanted to say I'm an optimist. I'm gonna, if I may, just respond to the Lexus question real quick because it's.
I know Jed had a
okay,
about the same topic, and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah,
Let's jump back.
Yeah.
Just a really quick point on the diversity question. I think the answer is in one sense, like really simple. To solve it, you just need a more representative data collection. I think that is as simple as that, because at the end of the day, your models are going to be looking at the data and the patterns in the data, and if it's not representative of that group that you're trying to make inferences on, you're going to make incorrect inferences. It's that simple. So just widen your data collection or collect more data from the tails.
Yeah, I have something similar to say. AI currently, as it stands, it's good as your data, and data is what representation of maybe society or humanity. There was a recent incident, not very recent, but 3 months ago, about Microsoft or not using sort of politically correct or racially correct things, right? But that's just representation of society. Why are we even expecting bots or AI to be politically correct all the time? We are themselves forcing them to be computers. If you want them to behave human-like, expect such behaviors. It's just representation of the society. So I don't quite agree that bots should be taught to be politically correct all the time or be very diverse. They are just a reflection of us.
So we'll come back to the Nexus question, because I think that was a very specific one. Before we do that, I just wanted to get a sense, timing-wise, we've got food and drinks upstairs. Did anybody have any other questions they wanted to ask the panel before we run out of time? Got 3 more questions?
Yes, I would like to know, because I think you are economist. So how do you think you can, let's say, transform the economic sector? Because I think all this action, let's say, are punctual, you improve something, but we want to see more in a sectorial way. This means, for example, tourism or fashion industry. So this means, where do you see the transformation of the industry, and how do you approach the, let's say, the aim?
Great. That's a great question. We're going to pick up 2 or 3 questions. I think it was
Hi. So I'm a huge fan of the optimism of the panel, but I'm just sort of trying to take a view on it from the other angle. Would be to say, what slows this down? What are the things that drag most? It seems like data is absolutely key to this. So is it, is the fact that there's just not enough detailed data being available at the moment that slows it down, or is it, for this, and I accept that individual small companies will make great grounds of being able to develop technology and have a small enough data sets to make this work. But for this to work on a much larger scale, we need corporates to, I don't know what it is, legacy systems they've got. Do those take a huge amount of time to work through? Is there sort of a huge amount of stasis within senior management teams of these businesses not to adopt this kind of stuff? But what is the friction that drags stuff basically?
Yeah, great. Last question.
So my question is, I believe that all of your companies help retail gain more customers and earn more money. However, I believe that the future lies in kind of the spending behavior becoming less. They spend less money, they go for more cheaper options or free options. How do you think that will be overcome?
Right. So, which industry is going to be transformed? To Gabriel?
Me.
Over to you, Gabe. Where's the friction? And a question about, I think you're asking a question about spending less. Is the personalization going to enable us to spend less?
No, the question was around how is AI going to help spend more to get companies to get profit? Because the trend is to not spend or get stuff for free.
Well, that's in a very small microcosm.
I would also challenge that. I would ask you where's that happening?
I'm going to make a suggestion, because I know that we're out of time and it's 10 minutes to 9. Let's take these questions upstairs. I want to thank the panel, because I know the food is already getting cold, sitting upstairs on the tables. Justin, Sharad, Keesup, Jed, Ivan, Gabriel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.